Welcome everyone to our election action planning for social housing, hosted by the Social Housing and Human Rights Coalition. And I'd first like to just let folks know that I'm coming to this webinar from Winnipeg, which is on Treaty 1 territory and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. And I'd like to encourage you all to reflect on the Indigenous lands that you are participating from today. The first thing I think before we get started is, Kimberly, are you going to do the poll now? Sorry.
Yep.
So we wanted to take a poll just to get a sense of how we can best communicate with folks. So before we get started, Kimberly's just going to send out this poll. So just indicate which of these are good places for you to participate.
Mm-hmm. And just to clarify too, these are spaces that we're intending to connect you with others in the session, just so you can follow up and potentially plan together.
Great, thanks. Okay, so I'm just going to continue as you're going through that. Maybe we could just flip to the next slide whenever you're ready. Thanks. So I just wanted to give, for folks who are new to the group, to just give you a little bit of background on the Social Housing Human Rights Coalition. Our coalition has been gathering now since 2022. We began with a bit of funding from the Social Sciences Humanities Research Council through a Connections grant, which really gave us some time to sort of reflect on how we wanted to organize ourselves and what we wanted to do. We were really focused very much on synthesizing existing research and filling gaps in research where needed, but really we're mostly interested in mobilizing around the research with a very specific focus on social housing. We're a volunteer-driven organization, and we're supported with some very, very bare bones contributions from folks, and those folks who have been donating would be listed on our website. And so Social Housing and Human Rights Campaign is really organized to fill a gap in national advocacy. There's a lot of advocacy being done more generally around housing issues, affordable housing issues, but we feel that there's been a real gap in advocacy specific to social housing, which I'll say a little bit more about in a bit. You can flip to the next slide. So our work begins from an understanding that there are many Canadians living in core housing need. And so on the slide here, I won't read through, but there's a definition of what core housing need is. But in 2022, the most recent statistics available, we know that 88.4% of households are living in unaffordable housing and are in core housing need. And renters are more likely to be in core housing need than homeowners. And again, specifically the concern for people who are in the lowest income households, being in core housing need and having very, very few options available to them. I'll just go to this next slide. So again, just to emphasize that the focus of the SHHR Coalition is on social housing, and social housing we need to differentiate between social housing and affordable housing, because affordable housing can mean many, many different things. So just to be very clear on our focus, we're looking at housing that exists outside of the market and cannot be used for speculation or to generate wealth. It's public, nonprofit, or cooperative owned housing. It cannot be owned by the private sector. And particularly important is that rents are less than 30% of household income, so RGI rents as we describe it, and they're equivalent to social assistance housing allowances. And in Quebec, the threshold is 25% of household income. And we would aspire certainly to the 25% that Quebec has, but certainly we would like to see that maintained in Quebec. We are very much focused on ensuring that housing developed in the social housing is prioritizing low-income renters that are in core housing need, and certainly people experiencing homelessness. So we know again that there's all sorts of housing needed, and more generally, we've got a fairly loud voice focusing on affordable housing more generally, but we're very much focused on social housing. So with that, I think we'll move on to slide 4, and I think Kirsten is going to proceed with slide 4.
Uh, it's me. Yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry.
Hi, my name is Kim, and I work on the comm side of SHHR, and I'm coming at you today from the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, the Attawandarock, and many other tribes. So, yeah, uh, just giving a little more context to what Shauna has said, and I think many of you have already known this, that the federal government kind of got out of the game of social housing and funding that uh, in 1993, and that's that's kind of the beginning of what would be to come old funding agreements for existing units that would be expiring. Um, we have seen in the last couple of years the federal government claiming to hop back in to the housing sphere. Um, but really, from that strategy, we've seen minimal, generally affordable units for individuals with the lowest incomes. Um, and specifically, the Rapid Housing Initiative, that was very well the only place where we saw like deeply affordable housing being built, but it was just the amount was so sparse. And only 3% of units funded through the strategy's largest program are affordable to low income households. So that's why we're here today as social housing and human rights. We're really the only national campaign uniquely focused on securing social housing, and that is non-market housing with rents set at less than 30% of household income. And you probably know this as well. There is a lot going on. Not only have we seen rents skyrocketing throughout the years, we have also seen all-time low vacancy rates for units, and homelessness is higher than ever. Uh, and sorry, it also says here like um, so drawing on our last slide, it's only 3 to 4% of um Canada's housing stock is dedicated. Well, actually, sorry, 4% is dedicated to non-market housing, including social housing. Um, yeah, and this is in the context now of US tariffs. So we're going to see ultimately job losses, wage stagnation, increased costs for household goods, and also in that turn, an increase in housing insecurity and homelessness, just due to loss of jobs that will be, in those in industries that would be affected, uh, lumber and steel. So really, we see social housing as a dual solution because it addresses the housing crisis, but it also strengthens Canadians' economy, and it has been seen to boost productivity and GDP, um, and increases demand too, which can counter that downturn. And what we really want to know from political leaders is what steps are they willing to take um, to to secure social housing for those Canadians and strengthen our economy for the future. So then that's coming to our call to action. And we call on the Prime Minister, uh, who, yeah, at the Prime Minister and the Minister of Housing to fulfill their legal obligation to realize that housing is a human right. And uh, we, um, part one of our call to action is that we want to create a minimum of 50,000 net new rent geared to income social housing units each year for 10 years starting now. So that is just to emphasize that it's a minimum. And these units should be target for those experiencing core housing need and homelessness and have rents permanently set at no more than 30% of household income. At the same time, we also want to see investment in acquisition, construction, operation, and maintenance of new and existing public, nonprofit, and cooperative owned housing that meets the unique and varied requirements of people that are experiencing poor housing need and homelessness. So now I'm going to pass it on to Kirsten.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kirsten. I am based in Winnipeg. I'm part of our local Right to Housing Coalition, and I'm active in the National Social Housing and Human Rights Campaign. I'm just going to share a little bit about some of the things that we've been doing over the last little while to get our local communities involved in the campaign and connecting with our political decision makers as well. So we've had over 430 people and organizations who've endorsed this campaign now, the call to action that Kim just read out. In November, on the week of November 22nd, that was the week of National Housing Day, we helped coordinate a sort of national week of action for change, where we saw hundreds of people gathered in their own local communities across Canada, calling on the federal government to enhance their investments in social housing. Can jump to the next slide. Here in Manitoba, when we did our action during that week, we actually had our local provincial minister of housing, Bernadette Smith, endorse the SHHR call to action. I think became the first political leader at a provincial level to endorse our campaign. So that was really exciting. We also did get at the federal level an NDP caucus endorsement of this call to action. And just since December of this past year, we had 1,259 letters sent by our campaign supporters to the minister responsible for housing, letting them know that they support this call to action and they want to see it implemented as soon as possible. So that's just a little bit of some of the activities that we've been involved with as a campaign. If you want to learn more about all of the actions that we've been taking, you can go to our website at www.moresocialhousing.ca, and under the milestones tab, you can learn a bunch more about that. Just jump to the next slide. Yeah, here you've got our QR code, so you can actually participate right now if you want. You can also find so the top one, the QR code, is to endorse the Social Housing and Human Rights Campaign and get subscribed to our newsletter. So if you haven't done that already and you're able to grab a phone and scan the QR code, you can very easily sign up to do that right now. You can also do that on our website. And then the QR code at the bottom is a brand new letter writing campaign that we've started up just for the election. That will, you'll just have to enter in some of your basic contact information, and we will send a letter on your behalf to the party leaders expressing your support for social housing and human rights call to action, and to see commitments around social housing as part of party platforms in this election. So That letter writing campaign is not quite yet up on our website, so it's great if you can scan the QR code to access it right now, but we will get it up there and send that around broadly as soon as we get that up on the site. I think we can jump to the next slide. So yeah, just going over a couple of ways that you might want to think about supporting the social housing and human rights campaign during the election. So asking federal candidates if they will endorse our call to actions, whether they're coming to your doorstep or you're out in the community, at an event that they're at, or if you want to proactively reach out to them and ask where they stand on this issue. You can organize local events or participate in local events that are happening to raise awareness about the need for social housing commitments in this election. Engaging your local media to cover social housing and this particular call to action, whether that's writing an op-ed or a letter to the editor, or if you're involved in an event, to issue a press release and get the media to come out to that. And just connecting with other voters who are interested in, policy solutions and what governments can do to address homelessness and housing insecurity. Talk about this call to action that we have this national campaign around, and encourage them, to vote for social housing. And then finally, we'll be putting out information through our social media as a campaign. So I don't know if at some point during this webinar or afterwards, we can send out information so that you can get connected to our social media platforms. But it would be great if you can share the stuff that we're trying to circulate over the next few weeks. I think that's it for me.
Great, thank you, Chris. Okay, and I just wanted to build on to what Kirsten was discussing in the last slide, and it's sorry, let me go back. It's questions to ask the party leaders. But I should also clarify, these are not only just questions that you can ask the party leaders, you can also ask your local candidates these as well. And it's whether they would endorse the Social Housing and Human Rights Coalition's call to action. And as just to really see their stance and to try to get some movement behind our campaign. But also there's follow-up questions you could ask too, in terms of would they commit to creating a minimum of 50,000 net new public, nonprofit, and co-op housing units each year for 10 years, starting in your first budget. This is more party leader specific. And will you ensure that all the units are targeted for those experiencing poor housing need and homelessness, and have rents permanently set at no more than 30% of household income? Okay, so that is nearing the end of our actual just sure information part of the session. And now what we want to do is we want to break out into the skill building groups. And I'm just right now gonna pull up the breakout groups so we can do that.